I turned 28 and something clicked where it's like, this is the year you have to stop living for external validation. As soon as you meet people, it's like, what do you do? It's almost as if people want to see how much respect they should give you based on your career. It was always checking boxes, always. It was always based on what would make me look successful. It was always based on achieving certain milestones. I tried to live up to the expectations, the very high expectations that were placed on me all my life. And it literally got to a point where it was breaking me down. I felt like such a burden, such a weight, such a load was lifted off of me when I finally got to the point where I could admit I had just cared too damn much what people thought about me, and trying to live up to those expectations. Stop looking at me like I always need to have everything figured out. I don't have everything figured out, okay? Thank you very much. After spending the first half of my 20s living for other people, living based on society's expectations, checking boxes and doing all of the right things that would make me successful in society's eyes, at 28, I decided to literally start over, completely overhaul my life and face my fears and embark on a new journey that absolutely terrifies me, but one I believe that God is calling me to. So that is what we're going to talk about in today's episode. I had like a scripted version with points that I wanted to talk through, but I decided to just be honest and maybe it will resonate with you. I usually come on the podcast and I talk about lessons that I've already learned, things that I've already understood, and I share like my experience and some things I think will help you. But this is something that I'm actively working through. So it will be like one of the most transparent episodes and terrifying episodes that I've made in a very long time. So I turned 28 2 months ago in March on the 15th. And after I turned 28, I started reflecting on my life. I started reflecting on, my accomplishments, what I want to do, what I've gotten done, and really like taking inventory and trying to understand like, where am I in my life and how do I feel about it? And is it in line with what I know God has spoken over my life? And I realized that, there were some discrepancies. And for transparency, I left my job some time ago and I've been on a sabbatical. And this is not something that's new to me. I left my first job out of college and I took a sabbatical, and then I got my second one, and then I left it and decided to also take a sabbatical, right? And my intention with the sabbatical was to just take some time off, do the podcast and content full time in the meantime, and then we'll go from there, right? And this is not new to me, so I was comfortable with it. But then when I felt like, okay, I'm good, let's go back and get another job, I felt like God was telling me, don't go back. And full transparency, I was having like a hard time decentering myself and my identity from my career, because there's so much that was attached to it. There's so much that went into me having that career. And I felt like it was something that was respectable in society, was something that people respected me for. And it was very hard to let go of it and fully allow myself to be a content creator, because it wasn't something that I necessarily planned for. It was something that God put me into and He called me to do while I was in my career. And let me just say this, I have never been passionate about my career. I've never loved it. For me, it was something that I did out of survival mode. It was something that, growing up in my culture, it's like, and I'm from the Caribbean, growing up in my culture, it's like, we are like groomed to be high performers. We are groomed to have like certain respectful careers like doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, that type of thing. And I just picked one of those that I felt like I was good at. And I did it because I knew it would have like a good pay. I knew it would help me like afford the type of life that I wanted to live. And it did. So that was my reasoning behind choosing it, but it was never something that I saw myself doing like all of my life. But because I had already started the process of living for external validation in terms of doing things that society said was successful instead of what God was calling me to do, instead of, like fully going all in on the things that I really wanted to do, I put society's expectations of me above all of that. And so when it was time to go back, it was kind of like, going back to that safety net that I have. But the issue was God removed the peace. He removed my peace about getting another job. He made it to where it was so hard for me to even apply. I didn't even want to do it. And I was trying to have faith. I was like, okay, God, make my content work, open a door for me somewhere so that I don't have to go back, because I don't want to go back, and you don't want me to go back, clearly, because of some conversations we've been having. So let's make it work. And I realized in the past few months that I have essentially been living a double life, meaning I know that this is what I truly love to do. I know that this is what I want to do full time. I know that there's other things that I want to add on to this that I would rather do full time than my actual career. But at the same time, I had invested so much into my career. There were so many sacrifices and pain and just so much time and effort that went into my career that I was having a hard time letting go of it, even though I knew that's not where I wanted to be. When I think about my career in finance, to me, it's not just a job. Here's the thing. You can go on social media, and I guess because of my algorithm, what I've been interacting with, I've been seeing a lot of people quitting their jobs, and they have a different perspective about it. They're happy. They're like, yes, I quit my job. I'm leaving the rat race. I don't want to do this capitalism thing. And they're happy. They're free, and all of the emotions, and I've had those emotions too, so I understand. But sometimes when you see people quitting their job, it's glamorized, they're happy, everything seems to be going well, and you feel kind of envious of that, because it's well, I don't like this job either. I don't want to stay here. I wish I had the courage, or I wish I had the savings to do what you're doing so I don't have to be here. And I was looking at it, and I'm essentially in the same position, because I did quit, and I did, by the grace of God, have the ability to take a sabbatical before going back. But yet, even though I don't want to go back, I'm having a hard time letting go. And I don't have those joyful emotions of freedom that they do. I'm struggling to let it go. And I had to really reflect on why that was a thing, because it got to a point where every time I prayed, every time I watch a sermon, I'm hearing things about God telling me see, behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I'm getting sermons that are literally so specific, talking about how you're in this position, but your heart hasn't truly let go. I'm calling you out of something and into something new, and you are in a position where if you got an opportunity to go back, you would forfeit the thing that I'm giving you, because you're so attached to the past. And I'm getting so many messages about letting go of the past and getting go of the past. And it's I do want to let go of the past, but why is it so hard for me to do it when I know I don't even want to go back? And as I thought about it, I realized that it was very hard for me to let go because of all of the investment, the blood, sweat, and tears, essentially all of the time, efforts, and energy that I put into building my career and creating the life that I was living prior to leaving it. For me, it's not just about I quit my job. It's not just about starting fresh. It's not just about jumping into something I love. For me, when I think about leaving my career and starting over, I think about the sacrifices that were tied to me having the ability to even have that career, right? For me, I think about the fact that I literally left my country, right? I grew up in St. Lucia. I literally left my country at 16 years old with my mom, and I moved to an entirely different country, to a new continent, to start over for better opportunities, for the opportunity that I was giving up. For me, I think about how, when I was going through the process of getting my visa and stuff to come to America, I remember one time my mother came in my room and she was like, pick a date, November 13th or November 21st. And I was in 2013. And that I picked the 21st because I wanted to delay it as much as possible, because I wasn't ready to leave. I think about the fact that I was sad the whole time we were going through the process of getting the documents to come to America, because I didn't want to leave yet. I had accepted that we would leave, but I wanted to graduate first, right? I think about the fact that I didn't get to graduate with my friends. I didn't get to go to prom. I've never been to prom, because when I moved here and I did a year of high school, I didn't feel connected to that school. I didn't know anybody. honestly, I entered late. I was honestly depressed at first when I moved here because I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to leave so soon, right? I think about those sacrifices. I think about leaving my entire life behind to come to this country to be able to have that career. I think about going to college and having to pay for school myself by working. I think about all the times I cried because I couldn't afford to pay for school and I was working all of those long hours. I think about the times my health was deteriorating because I was like going in survival mode to pay for school. I think about all of the sacrifices that I made to have that career. I think about all of the sacrifices that I made to keep a 4.0 GPA, to then start my career in Big Four consulting at a school that people told me they were not recruiting at, right? I think about how I did end up getting the position to work in Big Four consulting at the firm that I wanted to, that was my dream firm at the time, before I even entered my senior year. So I never even had to go through the process of applying for interviews and all of that. I had the offer before I started my last year in college, right, for a full-time position after I graduate. I think about like all of the sacrifices that I made to be good in that career, to have the pay that I had at a young age, to have the lifestyle that I had, to have the freedom that I have. It's like when I graduated, it's like there was so much sacrifice and investment and tears and energy into me getting into my career and having those opportunities. And when I graduated at 23 or 22, I don't remember. But when I graduated and I started working in Big Four consulting, I got my first job out of school. That was the first time in my life that I wasn't in survival mode, because I didn't come from, I came from humble beginnings. If my life was so great in my home country, I wouldn't have left to come here, right? So literally at 23, when I started my first job in consulting, that was the first time in my life that I was not in survival mode. That was the first time in my life that I could go to the grocery store and I can just get whatever I needed. I could go without a list. I could get snacks. I could get whatever I needed and I didn't have to check the price. I could go out to eat with my friends and I didn't have to worry about the bill because I knew I could afford it, right? I would have my bills on autopay and I would never even check. I would just get the confirmation email when it was done, right? I had put so much into that career to be in a position where it had finally taken me out of survival mode and it became like my comfort and my security blanket. And it was also a respectable thing where when you say you work in finance, it's one of those things that people respect you for. And especially the firms that I worked at, it's one of those things people respect you for. It makes you look like you have your life together, right? On the outside, everything seemed fine, but I knew that that's not what I wanted to do with my life. While I was there, I felt like I was betraying myself. I would do the best that I can with the podcast, even though there was a lot of struggles and still are some struggles with me fully stepping into podcasting and content creation, because I spent so much of my life so far building up a career in one area, and when God called me to walk away from it, even though I wanted to, even though I knew it wasn't my long-term plan, it was very hard for me because of all of the memories and the investments tied to me achieving that career in the first place. And the thing is, I always saw it as a very good backup plan. Like, okay, I can do whatever I want on my sabbatical and then I could always like just go back. And when I said, okay, I'm going to go back, God was like, no, I don't want you to go back. I called you to do this thing. I want you to do this full time. And I'm just like, okay, but can I do both together? You see what I mean? Because I realized I depended on that job for my comfort and my security. And the job, my career itself was an idol. It was an idol that I placed before God because I had more faith in a job providing for me than God. And that is why it was so challenging for me to come to terms with it. And literally, before I started recording this morning, I just got the idea to look up the stages of grief. And I realized that that's what I've been going through the past couple of months. I have literally been grieving, leaving everything that I worked hard for. It's like I knew the day would come, but it didn't come in the way that I thought it would. I thought it would come in the cliche way where, I had built up my podcast and the other things that I'm doing. I had built it up to where it was making way more than I was making in corporate. And now it's just like an easy transition. Like what you tend to see online for the most part, right? When people leave their jobs, it's usually the logical way. They have something else lined up, right? And I feel like God is calling me to do that in faith. And I'm like, I thought I had faith, but God has really been testing my faith. I'm coming into like such a deeper relationship with God during this time, because it's like everything that I stood on that wasn't Him, He is like ripping it from under me. And the crazy thing is, I'm already, like, I left my job and I've been on sabbatical, right? So technically I've been a full-time content creator. I've been a full-time podcaster. So you might be thinking, just like I'm thinking, like, okay, you've been doing it. So why hasn't He made a way? Why hasn't things worked out yet? And I watched a sermon this morning and it called me out. The Holy Spirit literally opened my ears, and she was very specific in what she was saying, right? Talking about a job and like very much talking about me. Felt very attacked. It made me realize that my heart wasn't completely in it. I was still applying to jobs. I knew that if I had the opportunity, I would go back. One day I would have faith, and the next 2 days I would be crying. I would be like stressed out. And I'm just like thinking about how I thought things would work out, and God is, doing something else. And I'm just like essentially spiraling. And I realized that I've been grieving this whole time, going through all of the stages of grief, because even though I knew there would come a time where I would walk away, it didn't happen the way I thought it would. And it's been hard for me to let go because of how much faith it has required me to have, because I feel like if I were to talk to anybody about what I was feeling, I would be met with the logic, which I think of the logic, and that's why I struggle with God. And it's like, God wants me to have faith. Every time I pray, I get signs that this is what He wants me to do, and I need to let go of the past. But it's like a whole different level of faith that I have not been tested with yet. And like that's ultimately where I am. God revealed to me that even though technically I am in the position, my heart isn't there, because I'm still complaining, I'm still murmuring, I'm still like wavering here and there. And the crazy thing is, I got to a point where I felt like, okay, God, I am aligning myself with what you call me to do. I am all in. I am closing the door of my career. I am doing what you asked me to do, right? I got to a point where I'm like, okay, God, we all in. Like, let's do this, right? I kid you not. Right after I got to the point where I said, okay, God, I'm all in, recruiters started reaching out to me with very appealing offers, right? Like, people are talking about how the job market is this, the job market is that. And at first I felt like God closed the door. But as soon as I said, God, okay, I'm all in, recruiters have been in my inbox, child, with significant pay raises. And I'm just like, I'm not going to lie to you. At first I was like, well, God, if that's the door you are opening. I was like, God, if that's the door you are opening. But then I'm like, this is a test. I am being tested, because every time I pray about it, every time I'm like, okay, is this what you want me to do? I keep getting, like, God will impress a scripture in my mind that is very specific about forget the former things, let the past go. Like, I just keep seeing that everywhere, and I'm just like, the hard part is it didn't happen. It's not happening the way I thought it would. It's not happening with like a blanket of security that I can see in the actual physical realm to give me comfort. It's like 100% faith, and it's very challenging, I'm not going to lie. And the reason why I'm making this episode is because when I Googled the stages of grief and the sermon and the conversation I had with God this morning, I came to a place where I'm just like, I am ready to accept it. Because acceptance is one of the stages, right? I realized I had went through all of the stages. I was angry, I was bargaining, I was, all of these things. And now I'm just like, I am going to accept it. And me accepting it is publicly stating it. And that's where I'm just like, all right, God, I'm tired of wrestling with you. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of spiraling. Like, I accept it. I cannot do anything right now. Only you can open certain doors. Only you can get me out of this now. Everything is resting on you. Your name is in jeopardy, Lord. Your name is at stake. Okay? This is not on me. This is on you. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Another episode that I'm actually going to talk about next week that I'm going to record today is going to be about that whole fallacy and the weight of being the person that people assume has it all together, when you know behind all of that you are struggling, you need help, you don't know what you're doing, you're literally winging it because you are here living life for the first time like everybody else, but nobody offers to help you, nobody offers to like really support you during certain times and transitions, because people always assume that you have your life together. That is something that I really struggled with in the beginning in my process of grieving as well, because I felt like I couldn't really like go to people with how I was feeling, because I would always be met with, you'll figure it out, like championing me to figure it out by myself, or just assuming that I don't need help because I have built my life and my career in a way where it looks like I have everything all together. But like I said in the beginning, I spent the first half of my 20s checking boxes, right? I wasn't doing things necessarily because I was passionate about it. The podcast and when I was blogging and other things, I was passionate about these things, but they always took second place to my career and what I deemed as my security blanket, what I deemed as my comfort, which had nothing to do with God. Now, do I regret it? Absolutely not. I don't regret anything that I've done in life. My career has brought me a lot of wisdom and knowledge that I apply in my business and every other aspect of my life. So I don't regret it at all. I just think that it was a very hard thing for me to come to terms with, because I had literally rooted my identity in it. I had a lot of investment in it, so I was very attached to it. And that's why, behind the scenes, this process has been very hard for me. And honestly, I feel like, especially the past few weeks, I have literally been like, I don't know, it's like I turned 28 and like my frontal lobe formed a little bit more. And I have just been on such like a fearless yet terrifying and emotional journey, where I just decided like I just want to go all in. And I'm single, I don't have a child. I have the privilege of being able to take these type of risky decisions, right? And so I'm just like, why not? Why, when else am I going to do it? When I have a child? Yes, you can do these things with a child, but it's significantly harder. So why not make the best of it while I don't have that responsibility? One of the reasons I'm able to process life the way I do and share what I share on this podcast is because I reflect and journal a lot. So I created these digital journals to help you have your own breakthrough moments instead of just listening to mine. And they will help you check in with your faith, heal from things you didn't realize you were carrying, and get real with yourself about your relationships and the cycles you keep repeating. And don't worry, they're not boring prompts. I added my usual spice so I can lovingly check you outside of the podcast too. You're welcome, bestie. Love you. So if you're ready to start doing the inner work, head to secludedthoughts.com/journals. Now back to the episode. So I just wanted to have that transparent moment. It was more so for me to free myself, because a lot of it was, when I told you I was, the external validation piece and the check boxes piece, a lot of it was just ranking the respect that people had for me based on my career so high that I was afraid of saying that it was something that I wasn't passionate about and something that I wanted to step away from. So part of this episode, I hope that there's somebody that it can inspire or make you feel like, you are not alone if that's something you're dealing with. But it's also for me too. Like this is one of the episodes that's also for me, because I have to release myself from that. I have to release myself from caring about how people think of me, caring about how people perceive me, right? Caring about looking like I have it all together when I don't. I don't want to be a superhuman. I just want to be human, right? I just want to have an opportunity to be vulnerable and say that I don't have the answers, and let that be enough. Not feel like I have to show up with the answers. I have to show up with advice, or I can only show up after I figured things out, which makes me feel like I have to then self-isolate and crawl in a hole and cry and punch air and figure things out on my own, and then when things work out, then I resurface. Like I'm tired of living my life in that way. So this is one of the episodes that's for me to just like say I don't have the answers. I don't know what I'm doing. I am I decided a long time ago that my 20s would be, the decade where I take the most risks and like, that type of stuff. So this is not even surprising. It's very fitting, but it's one of those episodes where I'm just freeing myself. Like I turned 28 and something clicked where it's like, this is the year you have to stop living for external validation. This is the year that you have to stop living based on what society says is successful. This is the year where you have to prioritize yourself, what God is calling you to do, and you have to detach your identity from your career and your work and what you do. Because that was such a big part of my life, and I hid behind it for too long. I hid behind it for too long because it looked good to other people. There have been times where I've been in rooms where people, specifically men, the problematic kind. There have been times where I've been in room with people, and I would, be networking and talking to people, and some guys would come up to me, and when the conversation got to the point of, so what do you do? And I said I work in finance. They'll be like, really? Like oh my gosh, I thought you were an idiot. Like, oh my gosh, I thought you were just a pretty face, or like assuming certain things about me because of how I look, and just getting like very shocked, like, oh my gosh, you have a brain that works. And it was so insulting, but at the same time, it was kind of like it was kind of satisfying to kind of shut them up when they realized that, no, I actually have a brain that works and I'm actually in a good career. And it's been hard because I'm not in finance anymore. Do I have the degree? Do I have the experience? Do I have the credentials and all of that? Yes. But because I'm not doing it anymore, I can't necessarily say I'm in finance. And the thing is, I have struggled to put myself out there now since I've been on my sabbatical, and especially now since I'm like, okay, I'm not going back. I've been struggling to put myself out there because I feel like the introduction is going to be different now. And the thing is, I love what I do, right? And I realize it's a perspective shift, because what I do, the emails and the DMs I get of people telling me that my content helps them, I'm just like, wow. Sometimes I watch different people online and they help me so much. Like when I watch pastors and the sermons really speak to me, or when I listen to podcasts and they really help me. And I never leave comments or anything, but like sometimes they really play a part in like changing my life or changing my mindset. And when people email me saying that my podcast does that for them, it's like insane to me that I could have that type of impact. But it's something that I prayed for. I didn't want to like have a platform and just come and run my mouth and talk about useless nonsense. So it's like, I know what I do is important. I believe in it. But I think because of how I was raised, because of the culture that I come from, where it seems like you can only be in a handful of career paths to be deemed as somebody who is successful or respectable. And because I had that in finance, and because there is like certain negative connotations or assumptions that is made about podcasters because of all of the foolishness on the internet, I had an issue where I was like really nervous with introducing myself, because I'm just like, okay, if I say I'm a content creator, people might think I'm like influencing. I'm just like, that's not necessarily what I'm doing. Like that's not necessarily what I do. If I say I'm a podcast host, then I would feel nervous that people would assume I'm one of those people who talk about relationships and high value nonsense. And because there's these like negative connotations around content creation, or some aspects of content creation. Yes, there's good aspects too. Like, it's a very well-paying field as well. Like people in content make more than I was making in finance. But I think honestly, it's because my career path and that type of thing has been a stronghold on me. I'm realizing that everything is about perception, right? It's all about your perspective. It's all about your mindset and how you look at it. Because somebody can look at it and be like, you have your time freedom, you have all of this, it's great. Earning potential is, uncapped, it's like unlimited. But because of my upbringing, because of how I was raised to feel like I had to pick a respectable career path and I had to, be a high performer and do like the typical society checklist type of things, because God was calling me away from that. I had a hard time accepting it because so much of what was like drilled into me was the opposite. And I already had it, and now it's like God wants me to walk away from it. And so it was very scary, and it was literally a stronghold that I'm learning to break off of me, because I am proud of what I do. I do love what I do. I think most of it is just mental, because I had just attached my identity to finance, which is the second thing. This episode is kind of all over the place, but right now I'm basically telling you about the things that I'm learning right now in this like new bold season of my life where I'm just starting over, right? So the first thing was that whole concept of changing my mindset and my perspective and breaking the stronghold of I have to do this in order to be successful, or even caring that much how I am perceived by this one thing and attaching my identity to it. The second thing is decentering my identity from my career and my work and even the podcast, because I am not what I do. I am who God says I am, right? My identity should be rooted in Christ. I am learning to decenter my identity from my career, from productivity, from output, from what I do, and really having it grounded in who God says I am. Having it grounded in the fact that I am His daughter and He will provide, He will take care of me, He will vindicate me, He will comfort me, right? He will fulfill me. God is who fulfills me. My relationship with God is what fulfills me, not the things that He promises me, not things of this world, not a job, not money. And I know this from experience, because I have tried to find fulfillment and comfort in those things and it didn't work. Even when I made my content an idol and I placed it above God Himself, it didn't fulfill me, because I realized what I really wanted was the intimacy of knowing God. And so even the podcast, because once upon a time I felt drawn to blogging and I did that for a few years before I sold it. But then it was kind of hard to let go because I was attached to the blog. And so now with God calling me away from finance and having me detach my identity from that, I'm realizing that I should not even attach my identity in content creation. I should attach it in God, because that is where I get the comfort of knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what I do, no matter what He calls me to do, no matter what career I'm in, as long as God's hand is over my life, I will be okay, right? I'll be more than okay. I will thrive, right? And I will be protected and provided for. So I am learning to decenter my identity. It's not about how I introduce myself based on my career. It's not about finance. It's not about podcasting. It's not about content creation. It's not about anything. It's about who God says I am and letting that be enough. And then in terms of what I do, just being obedient in the thing that He called me to do and doing my best at it. Like, that's literally it. But not deriving a sense of self-worth from any credentials, any degree, any, company that I work for that has a certain level of prestige. Not the industry, not content, not a paycheck, nothing but who God says I am. And that's easier said than done, especially if you come from, like my culture or even African culture. It's very similar, where we're raised in a way to be very high performers. And when you have that drilled into you and then you move to America, where literally that seems to be how society is run here. Like, as soon as you meet people, it's like, what do you do? It's almost as if people want to see how much respect they should give you based on your career, right? People want to see how you can help them, what you can do for them before even getting to know you. That's kind of how things work here. Like, everything is predicated on what do you do? Like, it says a lot about you. So when you try to detach your identity from what you do, it can be a very difficult thing to do when society is constantly telling you that your worth is based on how much you earn and what title you have. So that has been something that has been something that I've been trying to work through. And I have been allowing myself to, work remotely more, get out of the house more, and do other things, and not be afraid of just being myself and being confident in who I am and not attaching that to anything. Because right now, God, clearly has given me an instruction to have a podcast, but maybe in a few months or in a few years, he can say, okay, this chapter of your life is closed. I want you to move on to this thing. If I am attached to it, if my identity is rooted in this thing, it will be very hard for me to move on and let go like it has been with my career, because I derived my comfort and my identity from the promise and not the promise giver. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, it's a tough thing to do, but it's definitely something that I've been learning and I've been getting more comfortable with. And the fact that I'm making this podcast, like, announcing that, it's a big step for me. Like, I think because I'm calm and I'm not spiraling, that you think, oh my gosh, wow, inspirational. But I'm telling you what it took for me to get to this place, to admit that the thing that I worked very hard for, I'm not going back to it. I don't think you understand. It took a lot for me to get here. Okay, it took a lot of fighting, complaining, and murmuring and crying to God before I got to the point where I'm just like, you know what, I accept it. And it's not even about the career. It's about giving my heart to where you positions me to be right now and not dwelling on the past. If you want me to go back, I have the credentials. You can call me back. You can open doors for me. You can make it easy. I've seen you do it before. So it's like, it's not even about the career. That was just the physical thing that was in front of me in my eyes. It's more so about getting my heart devoted to God. It's more so about my heart posture. It's more so about fully surrendering to God. This is more spiritual than it is physical, but there are physical aspects attached to it that have been distracting me and causing me to really fight the process because of my attachment to all of these external things. Another thing I'm learning in this season is to stop living for external validation, like I mentioned earlier. So for me, in the beginning, it was always about, okay, go to school, have the GPA, right? I maintain a 4.0, get a good high paying degree. I got a degree in accounting, get a very good job at a very good company. I started off in Big Four and then I worked in tech. And it was always checking boxes, always. It was always based on what would make me look successful. It was always based on achieving certain milestones, right? Just like things that in hindsight I realized don't even matter. And then with that came respect and admiration and, like applause from family and friends and other things. And I'll talk about the downsides of that in the next episode next week. But with that came, people viewing me in a good light. So it felt good. And how do I explain this? The thing is, I didn't do it so somebody could clap for me. I did it because it would look good and I would have like a nice, respectful wall to hide behind while I figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. Because that was the thing. I knew that's not what I wanted to do ever, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an idea. I knew it would be some type of entrepreneurship. Then I knew it would be in content creation, but I wasn't clear on that. So I was like, okay, while I figure that out, let me hide behind this respectable wall of this nice finance career, so people assume that I have it all together and they don't question me. I don't have to answer anything here, but I'll be on the back end trying to figure out what I actually want. That's more when I say external validation, that's what I meant. Like, let me put up the wall while I figure it out, just so nobody is like bashing me or lecturing me or telling me like you need to figure your life out and just so I don't have that. Let me give y'all a good respectful mask to look at while I figure things out on my own behind the scenes. That's what I mean when I said external validation was an issue for me, right? Because I could have just been honest like I am right now. I could have just said I don't have all of the answers. I could have just said I don't know what I'm doing. But instead, I tried to live up to the expectations, the very high expectations that were placed on me all my life. And it literally got to a point where it was breaking me down. It was a heavy burden. Like I said, next week I'll talk about that. But in this process, as you're seeing with this episode, I'm learning to embrace I don't know. I'm learning to embrace I don't know. I'm learning to embrace it's in God's hands. I'm learning to embrace When I have the answer, I will let you know. Like, people are asking me stuff and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the answers. And it feels so freeing to say that. As somebody who people always expected to have my life together, as somebody who people always assumed that everything was going well for, and I just had everything figured out, it feels so good and so freeing to admit that I don't know what I'm doing. It like, yeah, I feel like a chain was broken off of me when I finally just started saying, you know what? Yeah, I left my job. I don't know what's next. That's where we are, right? So freeing. I cannot wait to tell you all about it next week. So that's the third thing. You will be forced. I am being forced to stop living for external validation and just be honest with myself. Just be vulnerable and just be like, you know what, it is what it is. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but, I'm in a position where it's the best time in my life to take these kind of risks, and I'm going to do it. I come on this podcast and I tell about taking risks and all of these things, and I have to practice what I'm preach. And y'all are seeing in real time that I am, taking a big risk, and I'm saying, like, it is what it is. I'm choosing to have faith instead of living in fear like I have been living most of my life. And if you're watching this and you know me and you have questions, the answer is I don't know. Okay? The answer is I don't know. So don't even ask the question. The answer is I don't know. Okay? God bless you. And unless you have some solutions, don't even ask the question. Okay? Because the answer is I don't know. And it feels great to say I don't know. Okay? Stop looking at me like I always need to have everything figured out. I don't have everything figured out. Okay? Thank you very much. The final thing that I would say that I've been learning is to really change my perspective. Like, it's all about your perspective. I'm sitting here and I'm realizing in my 20th year of life that everything is literally about perspective. There are people who would love to be in my situation. There are people who are in my situation where they just left their job because, again, TikTok has been showing me a lot of that because that's what I have been interacting with. So, the algorithm. There are people who have left their job and they are seeing it like, a ray of sunshine. They are thinking like, oh my gosh, I am free. They are taking advantage of the fact that they have slow mornings, that they can wake up without an alarm. I woke up at 11 this morning because I was up till 3, okay? And I didn't have to have an alarm. I didn't have to dread going to work. I didn't have to do anything, right? There are people in this position and they are truly embracing this and they love it and they are just appreciating this time and they're like, oh my gosh, I am free. And while I've been here, I have been grieving. I have been grieving because I feel like, yes, I have free will and I can go back and I can entertain one of these offers that are in my inbox, but I know it's not as simple as free will. I know what's in front of me is obedience or rebellion because God has made it very clear what He wants me to do. And I have been grieving and looking at this process from a very negative light because of how much I invested in what He's asking me to walk away from. And I decided to just change my perspective. I decided to, instead of staying in the house and sulking on the days where it's hard and, the uncertainty seeps in, I decided to start working remotely more. I decided that, I will be okay. I decided to be okay with introducing myself as a content creator and not being afraid or nervous about people like trying to go look me up or something, because to me that's just awkward. Like, I'm right in front of you, just get to know me. And it's weird when you feel like people have a whole online resume of you and you don't really know them personally per se. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I was overthinking in that perspective, but I decided to be okay with, embracing the season of my life that God has me in. I decided to embrace a new working schedule because I have been doing the 5 a.m. for some time, and I realized that it's great for some periods, but I also realized that I can also get a lot of very good deep focus work done between 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. and then wake up around 10, 11 the next day and have a slow morning. I've been realizing what has been working for me. I've been realizing that, it is a blessing to have freedom of time It is a blessing to be able to be out in the middle of the day and not worry about a call coming in because I'm trying to run errands on the clock. I've realized that there are so many upsides to this season of my life. And now that I have decided to enter the acceptance phase of, that grieving that chapter of my life, I just honestly want to walk in freedom. I realize it's honestly about my perspective, and I decided to change my perspective and just say, you know what, God, this is something I have been asking you for. It does not look like how I wanted it to look when I envisioned I would be fully stepping into it. I thought it would happen differently. I thought I would be going from security to security. I thought I would be going from comfort to comfort. I thought I would be going from good to abundance. I thought there would be more certainty. I thought it would be like a story of triumph. I thought it would be like, one of those situations where it would just be an obvious next step. But instead, it's a situation where you are calling me to have the type of faith that I didn't even know I could have, that I have been crying my way through on some days and then praising my way through on others. It's not what I wanted it to look like, but it's a situation where literally only God can get the glory in this story. The way I envisioned it, I would get the glory. It would look like I got myself to a point where I'm jumping from security to security. But the way God wants to do it is in a way where only He can get the glory. And what people don't always, clarify is that when God wants to do it that way, when only He can get the glory, the next step does not seem like the best step to make. It's like literally walking out on faith. It's like literally being in that place where the Israelites were between Pharaoh and the Red Sea. Behind you, Pharaoh is chasing you to enslave you. In front of you is flooding water in the Red Sea, and it's looking like if you step into it, you will drown. And it's like I'm literally waiting at the Red Sea, waiting for God to, part it so I can walk through. And, it's a situation where only He can get the glory. And I've been trying to control it. I have been trying to manipulate it. I have been trying to do things in my own strength. And I'm just like, you know what, God, I surrender. However you want to do it, whatever you have in store for me, I have to, I say I have faith. I say I have faith. And now you are like, okay, it's time to use it. And I'm like, so this is what it means to have faith. And yeah, I wish I could sit here and tell you that I have all of the answers. I wish I could sit here and tell you like all of these nice flowery things. I wish I could sit here and, give you some assurance. I myself am asking God for some reassurance every single day. But I wish I could sit here and tell you that I have all of the answers. But I'm actually very happy that I can sit here and tell you that I don't. Because I don't think you understand how hard it was for me to get to a point where I can admit that I don't know what I'm doing with my life and I don't have all of the answers. I felt like such a burden, such a weight, such a load was lifted off of me when I finally got to the point where I could admit I don't have the answers. When I got to the point where I, started being open with the people around me and saying, hey, this is the situation. I left my job. I don't know what's next. God bless you. It's so freeing to tell people, hey, yeah, I'm on a tight budget. I'm not spending money right now because the realization is setting in that He doesn't want me to go back. So I'm just like, all right, we need to be very frugal. Okay. And it's an adjustment. It's not what I'm used to, but it's like I am in a place where I finally got comfortable with admitting these things. I got comfortable with admitting I don't have my life together. I am not a superhuman. I am actually very human. Very human. And in the past, I used to be the type of person who would never cry about anything. I would always stomach my emotions. Ever since I developed a relationship with God, crying to me is like breathing. Crying nowadays is like breathing. Like when I cry, I'm not crying because I feel like my life is falling apart. Sometimes, yes. But when I cry, it's more so like just a release of all of the emotions. It's like a healthy release, right? And it's so freeing. It's so freeing. The point God has gotten me to where I can just be a human being. I don't have to be a superhuman. I don't have to have everything all together. I don't have to have all of the answers. And I don't have to live up to everybody's expectations of me to have all of the answers and to have my life figured out. I know it came as a shock to some of the people that I was honest with about me leaving my job and not really knowing what's next. I know it came as a shock because usually it seemed like I always had the answers. And usually I would force myself to try to live up to that. Usually I wouldn't make a move unless I had the answers. I wouldn't make a move unless I was sure that the next step was in front of me and I was confident and everything. I wouldn't ever put myself in a situation where I had to have this type of faith. And most of it was because I had just cared too much, too damn much, what people thought about me and trying to live up to those expectations of other people and stay on the pedestal that they put me on, of having everything figured out and not being able to say that I don't know what I'm doing or I need help. People, never assumed I needed help. People, you can take my situation and another person's situation and it could be the exact same. And for the other person, people will take the initiative and try to help them and go above and beyond for them and really like stop their life to try to help them with this. But when it's me, it's like nobody bats an eyelash. People, like, the world keeps moving because people expect me to have it figured out. People expect me to have the answers. People expect me to always make wise decisions. They expect me to have it all together. And for the longest time, I spent my life trying to live up to that, and I am tired. So it's actually very freeing to me to come online and say that I don't know what I'm doing with my life. It's very freeing. Is it scary? Yes. But I feel like it is so worth. I wouldn't change a thing because the very fact that I can get to this point where I'm just allowing myself to be vulnerable and not have the answers and not give a damn how people perceive me for not having the answers and not give a damn about people thinking that I'm crazy for having this much faith and, going against what a logical person would do. It is very freeing to be able to do that. It is very freeing. And even if I do go back to corporate, even if, something unexpected happens, it would be freeing to admit that I made a mistake, or it would be freeing to admit that, I'm in a situation or whatever. It would be freeing because I would finally be allowing myself to be a human being. I would finally be allowing myself to be vulnerable. I would finally be allowing myself to be honest about the fact that I am living life for the first time too, just like everybody else, and I don't have all of the answers, and I am tired of people expecting me to. I feel like I just had a whole venting session with y'all. That's the season of my life I am in, y'all. It's called being bold. It's called starting over. It's called taking risks. It's a new chapter where I am allowing myself to be vulnerable. I'm allowing myself to be open and honest and transparent. And I'm allowing myself to be around people when I don't have the answers instead of isolating and figuring it out and then resurfacing when everything is okay. I'm allowing myself to be human and I'm allowing people to see me as human. And instead of keeping myself in that prison that I allowed myself to get into by trying to live up to those expectations, I am breaking free and saying, this is the situation. This is what is happening. Things are not perfect. I don't have the answers. And instead of trying to act like I do and trying to figure it out on my own, I am simply just going to say, this is the situation. And depending on how I am treated, I can simply just adjust access accordingly. Because the thing is, I have not been up all my life. Okay, I told y'all when I graduated and I started my first job at 23, that was the first time I experienced financial freedom. Okay, outside of that, survival mode. And even then, it was still mental survival mode because I was just working, even though financially I wasn't actually in survival mode, but the mentality lingered. But I digress. So I've had down periods before, but for some time, it seemed like I was up because everything was, cool, everything was stable. And it's easy to have people around you when you seem okay, but when you finally decide to be a human being and say, I don't have things figured out, you really get to see who is really for you. You really get to see who will actually support you. And I'm not talking about in terms of people betraying you or anything, but you really get to see like which friendships and relationships in your life are very superficial and contingent on you doing well. Because I have friends where we can like go to each other's place and just have a conversation, no money involved, just sit and do random stuff, or just do like, free stuff, things that don't cost money, right? But you have a bond with those person. You have a bond with those people. You have a connection with those people. So you don't need to spend money to be around them. But then there are relationships in your life where it's contingent on that lifestyle that you created for yourself. And it's not to say that these people are bad or anything, but you just understand like the depth of the different relationships in your life, right? Oh, and lastly, I'm all over the place because I decided to go off script for this episode, so bear with me. But another thing I'm learning in this season is when you're in a position where you are financially constrained, since I put myself on a very strict budget, you really get to see what you truly value, and you get to see how much of a grip money has on your life. Let me give you some examples in my life, or a practical example in my life. I have always been very, health and wellness, that type of thing. And it was easy when I had my membership to do Pilates and all of that. But now that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do the membership because of some other things with the studio and whatnot as well. But now I'm like, okay, I'm going to do mat Pilates at home and use the apartment gym that I have. Right? Now that I have to do that, I have not been as consistent. And I'm just like, okay, am I only going to take care of my health when I can afford to do it in a way that's convenient? Or am I going to make ways to do it because it's a priority to me? You see what I mean? It's like, am I only going to do it when I can afford to do it in a certain way that I would prefer? Like this reformer studio and all of that type of stuff and the accountability of a class? Or is it important to me enough to say, I'm going to spread out a mat in my living room or in my apartment gym, and I am going to get my workouts in? Apply that to every area of your life that you say is important. Is it only important when you can afford to do it in a way that is convenient? Or is it actually important that you do it regardless? Right? So that's something I've been learning too. And then you also learn to redefine luxury and how you spend money and what's truly important and worth you spending money on. One thing that I am grateful that I got right is when I think about what luxury means to me, I don't think about being able to buy a bunch of name brand designer stuff, right? Don't get me wrong. That I'm not saying I will never have it, because I will buy a thing or two, okay, when situations change, and I know it will. So don't be surprised if you see me with something designer. But what I'm saying is that has not been a priority in my life, to the point where when I was able to afford certain things, I still didn't buy it, right? Because to me, that wasn't a priority. So one of the things I'm grateful that I got right was, one of the things that I always thought was luxury was being able to say that if I'm in a position that I don't like, I can walk away from it immediately that day and not worry about my finances. So the reason why I was able to take a sabbatical, and not just now, even when I left my first job, the reason why I was able to take a sabbatical and take like months off in between me getting a new job is because one of the things I counted as luxury was having like at least a year worth of emergency savings. Like when I started working, my priority was saving at least 6 months to a year of emergency expenses, so that if I don't like this job, if somebody talks to me sideways, if somebody disrespects me, just know that I am here because I want to be, because I can quit today and walk out and I can be okay. So that's one of the things that I'm grateful that I got right, because the reason why I'm able to be on sabbatical is because I prioritize always having a very thick financial backup plan, right? Now the thing about that is when you're living off of your savings, even when you know you have money left, it's kind of like, at least to me, it's like, okay, we still need to make a way, because I'm not necessarily maintaining the same lifestyle that I did when I knew I had a paycheck coming in. Like, I'm not, doing all of the hobbies and all of that type of stuff, right? Like right now it's just bills, right? Yes, there are some things that are harder to maintain, but there are some things that, if it matters to you enough, you can find creative ways to maintain it, regardless of your financial situation. So that was like a reality check for me. It was like, okay, sweetheart, are you only going to do certain things when it's convenient? And if so, how important is it to you then? So these are a few of the things that I have been learning during this process. I don't know what's next. Y'all are literally going to, I guess, just listen to me unpack my lessons and this aspect of my life live on the podcast and then also on social media. But yeah, if there's anybody who's going through a similar situation, I just want to, I don't know, I guess encourage you to have faith and, encourage me to have faith back, okay? Reciprocate the reassurance, because I need all of the reassurance I can get. Like, this is a new type of faith and testing for me. And I am just grateful that I am able to do this and practice what I preach, especially when I told y'all, take the risk and I'm going to do everything that I said I want to do. When I said I don't want to live my life with what ifs, y'all are actually seeing it play out in real time, right? I don't just come on here and speak a bunch of fluff, like I live it too. And this is just going to be an example of where you get to actually see me practice what I preach. And I cannot wait to see what God does in this season of my life. And, pray for me. Keep me in your prayers if you're filled with the Holy Spirit. If you're not, keep my name out your mouth. But, keep me in your prayers. And I'm very curious. I'm nervous, but I have faith. And I just, it's thrilling, it's scary, it's exciting. It's like, it's a lot. But I just decided to give God my yes. And I hope this can help somebody. It's not like my typical type of episode. I just turned on the camera and said I'm just going to be honest. And if this was helpful to you, there are 2 episodes that I know will also be helpful. The first is how to get unstuck in life, and the second is 10 tips to change your life in the next 5 months. So I really hope that this was, of value to you. Maybe you have some takeaways from it. And that is all I have to say today, and I will talk to you next Sunday.